Can't wait to get to this one. It's a standard at number 2 on WTBC survey of August 8th, 1963. It is one of the early recordings by the Four Seasons. Gosh, they probably had about 3 or 4 top 10s by the time they came out with this one. Summer of 1963, Candy Girl by the Four Seasons off the Fiji record label. Candy Girl, I don't even know where to start with this. Well, number one, you got to understand that a lot of the songs that were done by the Four Seasons were written by Bob Gaudio. He was the keyboard player, and also written and produced by Bob Crewe. Bob Crewe, they co-wrote a whole bunch of songs. Sherry by the Four Seasons. Sherry, Big Girls Don't Cry, Ragdoll, Bob Gaudio, and Bob Crewe. Bob Crewe started out back in the 50s. He was a session singer, sang on demos for the XYZ record label, teamed up with a friend of his named Frank Slay, who later produced Incense and Peppermints by the Strawberry Alarm Clock, and produced hit records by Freddie Boom Boom Cannon in the early 60s. Frank Slay. Well, here's the deal. Bob Crewe and Frank Slay, they teamed up and they wrote Silhouettes by the Rays. Bob Crewe produced that record. He also, Bob Crewe and Bob Gaudio, Bob Crewe and Frank Slay wrote Daddy Cool, which was on the B side of Silhouettes. So that early stuff that Bob Crewe did. But Bob Crewe produced this record, Candy Girl, but he did not write it. And boy, this is going to go down an interesting road right here. The guy who wrote Candy Girl was a fellow named Larry Santos. Larry Santos, he sang with a group called the Madisons back in the 60s and the 70s. He released 3 albums, several albums off the Casablanca record label. But I read some years ago that Casablanca, now think about this now, Casablanca was a sort of a disco record label, became a disco record label, although their early signings included Kiss. They also signed Angel, which was a heavy metal band, but they were the flagship groups or acts off the Casablanca was Donna Summer, Village People, Parliament was on that label. Larry Santos was on this label, but they didn't know what to do with him. He was more like a jazz-oriented singer. At least that's what I read in a book some years ago. And I'm outsourcing some knowledge I read about 7 or 8, 9 years ago. But Larry Santos, in 1976, he had that hit, We Can't Hide It Anymore. Anybody remember that? Early 1976. We Can't Hide It Anymore, a song about an extraterrestrial. Well, you know it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You can tell by that, by what I just said. Actually, what I meant to say was Extramarital Affair. Pretty powerful song, but it was not real big. Maybe top 30, I think, for Larry Santos. Well, he wrote Candy Girl. Probably got a nice royalty check off that song, too. Larry Santos wrote that. Bob Gaudio and, gosh dog it, The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore. They wrote that. Bob Gaudio and Bob Crewe wrote that song. Originally done by Frankie Valli, but then the Walker Brothers had the huge hit with it in 1966. And later on, in the 70s, Bob Crewe teamed up with Kenny Nolan. And they wrote My Eyes Adored You. Top 10 for Frankie Valli, and they wrote Lady Marmalade. Kenny Nolan and Bob Crewe. Bob Crewe, there needs to be a book written about Bob Crewe. At least for the rock and roll aficionados, the pop music aficionados. Bob Crewe, not very well known to the general audience, but behind the scenes, this guy was just whipping out one hit after another back in the 60s. All right, well, at number 3, we got number 2, Candy Girl and Marlena. Marlena had a great beat to it, the B-side. By the Four Seasons, WTBC's survey of August 8th, 1963.